This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, so Shiur sponsored by Teddy Pollack, Lili Nishmas, the Kedoshim in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, Bruchim Abam, welcome everyone. Thank you everyone for coming. We've discussed in the past many interesting and controversial topics, but this one tops it all. No question. Okay, we're going to speak tonight about a topic that's always on people's minds, but is specifically relevant as the years pass by. At the beginning of the Parsha, Rivka Yimenu, after many years of anticipating having children, finally, Baruch Hashem, she's expecting, and she notices something out of the ordinary. Vayisroitzitu abanim b'kirba. The children are quarreling. They're fighting. They're running. V'ataymer, she says, Imkein lama zeh anochi. If this is the case, what did I want this for? V'atelech lidrosh es Hashem, and she went to investigate of God. Now we always are accustomed to understanding this to mean that she went to the prophet. She wanted to hear, what does the Navi have to say? What do these children have in store for her? However, the Targum Onkelos reads and understands this pasuk a little bit differently. The Targum Onkelos says, why did she go to investigate God? Va'azolas lemisba olfan min kadam Hashem. She went to seek instruction from before God. Olfan, lashon aleph, learning. She went to learn Torah. She had a halachic question. She had a halachic query. She did not understand what to do. And therefore she went to seek the advice of the poskim. That's how the Targum Onkelos understands the pasuk. Va'azolas lemisva ulfan min kadam Hashem. She went to seek instruction. So the Brisker Rav wants to know, and this is by way of introduction, what was her halachic question? I mean, what's the question? She's having twins. You know, it's not rocket science. She feels there are two kids inside. Well, what's the shaila? So the Brisker Rav brings down the Medrash. Vayisroitzitu abanim. They were both running to kill each other. Yaakov was trying to kill Esav. Esav was trying to kill Yaakov. Okay, fine. We understand why. We understand that. Things haven't changed. Right? It's the same thing, right? That's the same way it is now. Says the Brisker Rav, these two, Yaakov and Esav, these two guys over there, these are not Bnei Adam, they're not born yet. They're vlados, they're fetuses. Okay, they're fetuses. Is one allowed to kill a fetus? What's the halacha? Of course you can't kill a human being. Are you allowed to kill a fetus? So as we're going to learn tonight, there's a difference between a Jew and a guy. That this is one area of halacha, that for goyim, the halacha is more machmir on goyim than it is on yidden. For a guy to perform an abortion, it is even worse than for a Jew to perform an abortion. And we'll have to see why. The halacha is that if a guy kills a fetus, we kill him. It's capital punishment. If a Jew kills a fetus, there's no capital punishment. So therefore, says the Brisker Rav, Yaakov is trying to kill Esav. Well, Yaakov is not really doing anything that he would be liable to capital punishment. Because Yaakov is a Jew and Esav is a guy, for argument's sake. So says the Brisker Rav, Yaakov is a Yid and Esav is a guy. So for Yaakov to kill Esav, Yaakov's not a roidef. What's a roidef? A roidef is if you see Reuven trying to kill Shimon, you're allowed to kill Reuven to save Shimon's life. So Yaakov trying to kill Esav, Yaakov's not a roidef. Why not? Because Yaakov is a Jew. A Jew to kill a fetus, it's not a capital offense. You're not liable to capital punishment. On the other hand, Esav is a guy, and a guy cannot kill a fetus. A guy who kills a fetus is a roidef. He's a full-fledged murderer. So here, Rivka is looking at these two kids. Yaakov is trying to kill Esav. No, nishkefelach. A Jew killing a fetus, it's not a capital crime. Esav is trying to kill Yaakov. A guy killing a fetus, capital offense. Esav is a roidef. Rivka's shaila is, could she have an abortion on Esav? Could she kill Esav? Because Esav is a guy. A guy cannot kill a fetus. A Jew could kill a fetus. There's no capital punishment. To which they respond to Rivka, no, you made a mistake. Esav will act like a guy, but now in utero, Esav has not demonstrated that he's veering off yet. Right now, these are both children of Rivka, Yimenu, Hatzadekes. Right now, they're both Yidden, and they're equal, and you can't touch either one.
What was the Ola Amina?
Okay? Her Havamina was, Ki Yitzchak Yikar L'Chazara. The same way Yishmael is not a Yid, even though he was born of a Jewish mother. Why? Because he has been utterly rejected. Garesh has been Oama Hazois from his birth. So too, Ki Yitzchak Yikar L'Chazara, Yitzchak, the same way Esav wasn't Yoresh, not just because of his actions. There's a Havamina to say this was already predetermined. Okay? To which the Navi said no. But Rabbi said what we want to discuss today is this concept, this topic of abortion and halacha. Now, to our utter dismay and our utter distress, unfortunately, the land of Israel today is either the most liberal or among the countries which are most liberal when it comes to abortion. Unfortunately, l'da'avoinenu u'la'agmas nafshenu, they pay women money. They fund an abortion for women between the age of 20 and 33. From what I remember, if I remember correctly, more than 1 million babies have been killed in the state of Israel. That's the government. You know, now's not the time to discuss the approach toward the government of Israel. But you could get a little bit of a feeling why not all Gedolei Yisrael, or many Gedolei Yisrael, do not... Okay. But that's not what we're discussing tonight. What we're discussing is, what is the halacha regarding a non-Jew, a Gentile performing an abortion? What is the halacha regarding a Jewish person performing an abortion? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin, on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis, look at number 7. The Gemara tells us a number of very interesting and unique halachas that apply to Goyim. Number 1, Ben Noyach Nerag B'dayan Echad. A guy could be killed with one judge. That means like this. To kill a Jew, how many dayanim do you need to kill a Jew? You need 3 dayanim to kill a Jew. But a guy could be killed with one dayan, with one judge. Ube'ed echad, you could kill a Gentile through the testimony of one witness. Shaloi b'hasra, a Gentile could be held liable to capital punishment without being warned. Mi piish v'loi mi piisha. Now that witness has to be male. But even if it's related. Mishum Reb Yishmael Amru Af al ha'ubrin. In the name of Rabbi Yishmael, it's reported that a guy who kills a fetus is chayiv misa, is liable to the death penalty. A Jew who kills a fetus is not liable to the death penalty. But a non-Jew who kills a fetus is liable to the death penalty. The Gemara says a few lines down. My time of the Rabbi Yishmael. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yishmael? Dechsiv, shoifech dam ha'adam ba'adam dam ha'yishafech. It says, listen carefully, one who spills the blood of a person in a person will have his blood spilled. So Gemara wants to know, how do you kill someone inside a person? How is it possible for there to be a person in a person? What does it mean? Someone who kills a person in a person, we kill him. Says the Gemara, Eizehu adam shu ba'adam. What kind of person is inside of a person? Have a oimer? Zeh ubar shebemei imai. This is a fetus. And the Torah is saying, Shoifech dam ha'adam, someone who kills a fetus, ba'adam, that's already inside of a person, dama yishafech, we spill his blood. In other words, killing a fetus for a non-Jew is a capital crime, a capital offense. Okay, and the Rambam paskins the halacha. Take a look at number 8. The Rambam in Shoftim, Hilchos Malachim, Parak Tes, halacha Dalid, says the Rambam, Ben Noyach Shaharag Nefesh Afilu Ubar B'me'imai Nerag Alav. If a Gentile kills a fetus, he's liable to the death penalty. However, concludes the Rambam, Masha'ein Kain B'Yisrael. That if a Jew kills a fetus, they're not liable to the death penalty. Why not? Why not? Why, if a Jew kills a fetus, are they not liable to the death penalty? So we come to a Mishnah, Masechta Ayelos. This is a Mishnah that everyone has to know. This is a fundamental Mishnah when it comes to the laws of killing a fetus. The Mishnah says, a woman's having a very difficult time in her pregnancy. Now we're not talking about regular pregnancy. No pregnancy is pleasant. They're all difficult. But there's a woman, she's having terrible time. Her life is in danger. Her life is in jeopardy. The vlad, the fetus, is jeopardizing, is endangering the life of the mother. Mechatchin es havlad b'meyeha. We kill the fetus. We cut up the fetus in the womb of the mother. And we remove the fetus limb by limb. Why? Because her life is more important than the life of the baby, than the life of the fetus. Because her life, the mother's life, is more important than the life of the fetus. Why? Why is the mommy's life more important than the life of the fetus? You ready for a Rashi? There's an astounding Rashi in the Masechta Sanhedrin Daf Ayin Beis. Says Rashi, look carefully in number 10. Dekol zman shelo yatsa la'avir ha'olam. Before a kid sees the light of day, lav nefesh hu. It's not a living creature. It's not human being. What's an Adam? An Adam is someone who's born. Before someone is Yatzal Avir Olam, this is not an Adam. This is not a soul. You hear such a thing? Rashi's of the opinion that before a child is born, it's not a nefesh. So why does the life of the mother take precedence over the life of the child? Because the mother is a nefesh, and the child is not a nefesh. But says the Mishnah, as soon as that kid sticks out its head, or comes out majority, then it is a nefesh, and then you cannot kill the child to save the mother's life. Then you have to let nature take its course. So Rashi is saying a very important idea. That what's the reason why, if the mother's life is in jeopardy, you're allowed to kill the child? Not because the child is a roidef, not because the child's trying to kill the mother. Because a baby, a fetus in utero is not a nefesh, says Rashi. Comes along the Sma Sefer Mir Seinayim, on Choshe Mishpat, and he says, I'll prove to you that before a kid is born, the child is not a nefesh. It's not a living being. It's not a viable creature. You know what the proof is? Does anybody know what's the halacha? If a person hits, slugs, punches pregnant woman, and Rachmana litzlan, the mother miscarries, so what does this guy do? What do we do to the guy? Is he a roitzeach? Do we kill him? No. We say, pay up. Pay the mother for the value of the fetus. Pay the mother for the value of the kid. Would anybody say that if Shimon kills Levi, so then we say, oh, Shimon, Levi's worth $137, so why don't you just give it to Levi's wife? Of course not. Shimon's a murderer. You don't pay money when you kill somebody. We take your life. So if we take your life, so why somebody who slugs a woman and the mother miscarries? Why do you have to pay money? The answer is, says the Sma, because until a baby is born, it's not a nefesh. Now, again, a guy who kills a fetus is chayiv misa. But a Jew who kills a fetus, it's not a nefesh. So is it mutter? Well, the Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Nun Tes says something that you're probably all thinking. That how is it possible that there's something that a guy is not allowed to do that a Jew could do? It's just like so going against the way we were brought up. How is it possible that there are things that we're allowed to do that goyim can't do? No, it's not shayach. Like, would you ever imagine there are things that we could eat that goyim? Can you imagine if there was a restaurant that we could eat at, and goyim would walk by, with glary eyes, and they're salivating. Oh, we wish we could eat that. There's no such thing, right? It's just the opposite. There's nothing in this world. We're trained. There's nothing in this world we could do that Goyim can't do. And yet, in fact, the Gemara says in Masechta Sanhedrin, Leka midam, there's nothing, Dil Yisrael shari, that Jews are allowed to do, and Goyim are not allowed to do. What?
Why?
It just can't be. It can't be such a thing, We can't.
Goyim that learn Torah?
Oh, good kasha. Tosefos asked that question. Sanhedrin Daf Nun Tes Ayin Sham. Tosefos says we're not talking about mitzvahs. We're talking about prohibitions. So therefore, Tosefos asked another question. What do you mean? There's nothing Goyim can't do that Jews could do? Goyim are not allowed to commit an abortion. Jews could commit an abortion. Says Tosefos, look at number 13. Very important. V'alha ubrim. On a fetus, that a Jew is chayiv, v'Yisrael pater, afagav de pater. Even though a Jew is not punished, mikal makom lo shari, it's still not permitted. In other words, says Tosefos, a Jew cannot commit an abortion, cannot perform an abortion. Why? What's the problem? I thought it's not a nefesh. Doesn't explain exactly. But so far we're learning that according to Tosefos, it's incongruous to say that a goy cannot perform the abortion and a Jew can. And therefore you have to say a Jew can't. Now is it midoraisa? Is it midrabanan? Is it just the chumrah? It's like a svara. It can't be that Jews could do something that goyim can't do. Okay, so we start like this. The first opinion that we're going to examine tonight, the opinion of the Mizrahi on Rashi Masechta Mishpatim. Mizrahi says like this. To kill a fetus is cold-blooded murder. It's like walking down the street and shooting someone in the head. There's no difference between killing an adult, killing a child, killing a fetus. So the question is, so why if a guy performs an abortion, is it a capital crime? And for a Jew to perform an abortion, there's no death penalty. Says Mizrahi, there's a technical halachic loophole when it comes to abortion. And that's the following. In order to give a Jew capital punishment, you need to be able to warn him definitively. And you need to be able to say, Rabbi, don't shoot Yehuda. Don't shoot Zavulon. If you shoot Zavulon, we're watching you. You're going to be a Roitzeach. And if you do it, we'll give you capital punishment. So if Shimon does it, then he's chayiv me, so we could kill him in the court. Why? Because we warned him definitively. But let's say we tell Shimon, don't kill this guy. It might be Zavulon, or it might be a horse. We're not sure. We can't tell. But don't shoot him, because it might be a human, it might be a Jew, and if it's a Jew, you're going to be chayiv misa. If he shoots him, and it turns out to be a human, we can't give him the death penalty. You know why? Because that's called hasras safek. We did not warn him definitively. You can't give someone a warning, don't do this because maybe. You have to warn someone, don't do this because. Without a definitive warning, you can't give hasra. It's not a hasra. Therefore, says Mizrahi, you can't warn somebody, don't perform the abortion. You know why? Because since this child has not been born yet, we don't know that this child is going to be a viable human being. Until a kid is 30 days old, you don't know if it's a ben kayama. Maybe the child is not going to be born after full term. Maybe he'll be born after 8 months. Maybe the child's not healthy. And you're not then killing a viable human being. So you can never warn someone, don't perform this abortion because you're killing a viable human being. Well, we have no way of knowing if you're for sure killing a viable human being. So therefore we cannot administer a definitive warning. And that's the only reason why if somebody performs an abortion, they're not chayiv misa. But are they a murderer? Yes. Is it ritzicha? Yes. Is it more lenient for a Jew to do it than for a guy? No. It's just that we can never give a Jew capital punishment because you can never warn him. But a guy doesn't need to be warned. You could administer capital punishment to a guy without warning. So therefore, a guy who performs the abortion, even though it's not a full-fledged warning, nevertheless you could give them capital punishment. That is the opinion of the Mizrahi. Again, Mizrahi holds abortion is murder. So when we administer punishment, there's a problem with the warning. Comes the Shal Shechuvas Chavos Yair, Rabbi Yair Bachrach. And Rabbi Yair Bachrach, one of the great Gedolei HaPoskim of the Achronim, he talks about the following case. You have a woman, a frum Yidina, a frum woman. She's married. And she was Mezaneh. And now she's wondering why, from the moment she was Mezaneh, her cycle stopped. And she's wondering, why? What happened? And then she realizes why. Because she's expecting. And she realizes, Sprinzer realizes, that she's having a nice little mamzerel. And she's beside herself. She's banging her head against the wall and blood is coming out of her head. That's how upset she is. That's what's reported in the tshuva. She comes to the Rav and she says, Rav, I want to do tshuva. What should I do? She's devastated. She's going to have a mamzer. And she wants to know, could she take some kind of pill to abort the fetus? Says the Chavos Yair, I don't believe that a woman who would be mezaneh would ask a Rav a shayla. I don't believe this ever happened. It's not happening. That all of a sudden she was a frum woman and she was mezaneh and now she's asking shaylas how to do tshuva. But theoretically, if such a thing happened, says the Chavos Yair, that abortion is not murder. Not murder. Only if you kill a child that is actually born as a mother. So what's the Yisr? It's still Asr. What's the Yisr? The Yisr is Hashkasas Zera. It's an Yisr of wasting seed. In English, right, we know one is out to waste seed, masturbation. There's a prohibition in the Torah of wasting seed. It's a lav in the Torah. According to the Zohar, it is the single most chamor lav. However, according to the Halacha, it's a lav. It's a lav. It's a prohibition. So you say, this is not seed. This is a child. This is a fetus. Well, it's worse than seed. It's seed that has developed. So to abort a fetus is a lav of hashchasa zera. And a woman is not allowed to be mashcha zera, according to some Rishonim. According to others, she can. But a woman, according to many Rishonim, is not allowed to either. And therefore says the Chavos Yair, for a woman to abort the fetus, it's a lav, not of murder, but of wasting seed, and she can't do it. Is it murder? It's not murder, but it's a lower level. It's called Hashkas Azar. Comes Rav Yaakov Emden, and Rav Yaakov Emden says one of the most radical chidushim you'll ever hear. Ready? Rav Yaakov Emden writes in the Shelas Yavitz, in Siman Mem Gimel. Same shaila. A married woman is mezaneh. Now she's expecting a beautiful little mamzerol. Right? She wants to abort the fetus. Says Rav Yaakov Emden, if we had a bezdin, what would we do to this woman? We would kill her. But she's pregnant. The baby didn't sin. No. The baby's part of the mother. But the baby could be a tzaddik. Doesn't matter. Right now, the baby's part of the mother. Okay. Says Rav Yaakov Emden, but we don't have bezdin. But she herself is really chayiv misa, and so is the baby. Says Rav Yaakov Emden, if at this point she would say to herself, I'm so upset about the aveira that I did, that I have to do tshuva, and she jumps off the roof. Would that be suicide? No. Because since she's really liable to the death penalty, and she feels that this punishment is resting on her back, and she feels the only way she could gain favor in the eyes of Hashem is to perform suicide, she would be allowed to. But what about the child? Child's part of her. So now she doesn't want to commit suicide. She just wants to commit suicide on part of her, the baby. Says Rav Yaakov Emden, since anyway the mother's chayiv misa and the baby's chayiv misa, And if a person is so distraught by an Aveira, they could take this kind of punishment in their own hands. Says Rav Yaakov Emden, she could do it. Because an abortion is not murder. It's only Hashkafah Zera. And anyway, the baby's liable to the death penalty. Not only is she allowed to do it, it could be it's a mitzvah to do it. Now that you heard that, the doors are locking. Okay? You have to hear the conclusion of it. That's the psak of Rav Yaakov. Again, Rav Yaakov Emden holds an abortion is not murder. It's Hashkafah Zera. The Marit in a tshuva, the Marit writes, Rabbi Yosef Mitrani in Siman Samach Zayin, that why is abortion asur? It's not murder. It's not wasting seed. It's not Hashkafah Zera. It's chavala. Chavala means you can't injure someone. Are you allowed to go over to a Jew and hit them? You can't damage a Jew. You can't injure a Jew. So Hashkafah Zera, a woman is not allowed to injure herself. She can't injure her arm. She can't injure her baby. Is it murder? It's not murder. Is it wasting seed? It's not wasting seed. It's chavala. It's mazik. It's injury. Okay? So far we have a few opinions. The opinion of the Mizrahi is it's cold-blooded murder. Why don't you get death penalty? Because we can't warn you. Opinion of the Chavos Yair is wasting seed. Opinion of the Marit, it's damage. It's chavala. Comes along Tosefos and Masechta Nida, and possibly the most controversial Tosefos in all of Shas. And Tosefos says on Daf Mem Dalet Amud Beis, the following question. If you have a fetus who's in danger, whose life is in danger, are you allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save the life of the fetus? No? Let's say you have a fetus, the life of the fetus in danger. Could you drive the mother to the hospital on Shabbos to save the fetus? Of course you can. Of course you can. Tosefos asks, if you're allowed to kill the fetus, then why are you allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save its life? You can't have it both ways. If you're allowed to commit an abortion, then how are you allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save its life? But clearly from Tosefos' question, it's clear Tosefos holds abortion is mutter. Tosefos says, look at number 18. He says, V'im toimar, im timtza loimar, the mutter laharga, if you could kill a fetus, bebeten imoi, amai mechalon olavas ha-Shabbos. Tosefos says that even though you're allowed to kill the fetus, you're also allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save the life of the fetus. Why would that be? I mean, what? It's like the Shabbos is discretionary. If you want, you could kill it, and if you want, you could desecrate Shabbos. Tosefos says, I'll bring you a proof. The proof is that someone who's a goyseis, what's a goyseis? Someone who's about to leave this world, not through natural means, through, let's say, an injury, somebody injured the person, and they're a goyseis. If someone kills such a person, we won't kill them, because the person was about to die anyway. Are you allowed to desecrate Shabbos to prolong the life of a goyseis? Yeah. So you see that even though if you would kill the goyseis, you would not be liable to the death penalty, nevertheless, you're allowed to desecrate Shabbos to prolong the life of the goyseis. So too, a fetus, even though you're allowed to kill it, Tosefos says, you're also allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save its life. But Tosefos seems to be saying very clearly, abortion is not an Isser D'oraisa. It's not an Isser D'Rabbanan. It's mutter. Those are the words of Tosefos, both in his question and his answer. The Maritzchias points out, wait a second, didn't Tosefos, we read in Sanhedrin, Tosefos said that even though a guy is now to do abortion, and for a Jew it's pater, but it's still asur. Well, says Maritzchias, this Tosefos seems to say it's mutter. Very, very strange. Why in the world would Tosefos be saying it's mutter? You know what mutter means? Mutter means you're allowed to do it in the first instance. You're allowed to do it. So if Yaakov Emden writes, no, Tosefos doesn't mean mutter. He means pater. Well, you know what pater means? Pater means if you do it we're not going to give you death penalty, but you still know how to do it in the first instance. Pater aval asar. But that's not the words of Tosefos. The words of Tosefos are mutter. Okay, so far let's lay out on the table the different opinions we have. The opinion of the Mizrahi is that it's murder. It's cold-blooded murder. We just can't kill you because we can't warn you. The opinion of the Chavos Yair is it's Hashkafah zera. It's wasting seed. The opinion of the Marit, it's injury. And Tosefos, lo and behold, seems to have an opinion that it's mutter. What's the nafkamina? What's the practical difference between why abortion is asur? So I'm going to tell you an amazing case that Rav Unterman, one of the first chief rabbis of Israel, brings down, and Rav Moshe quotes in his Chuvas, about a German officer. You ready for this? It's an amazing case. German officer, World War I. He has a relationship with a Jewish woman. He lives with her. He impregnates her. Lo and behold, this woman is not now carrying a child for a German officer. The last thing the German officer wants is for a Jewish woman to be carrying his child. So he says, you better make your way to the clinic and have an abortion. She goes to abortion. Who's the doctor? A from a yid. Who else, right? The doctor says, I can't do it. The German says, you can't do it. You could do it. I think you could do it. You'll find a way. Right? He threatens him. Now the question is, can the Jewish doctor save his life by performing the abortion? If abortion is murder, like the Mizrahi, are you allowed to kill someone to save your life? You can't kill someone to save your life. If someone says, kill B or I'll kill you, the halacha is you can't kill someone to save your life. Why not? Because we say, who says your blood is redder than your friend's blood? Maybe your friend's blood is redder than yours. So the halacha is you're not allowed to kill someone to save your life, right? If somebody puts a gun to your head, chas v'shalom, and says, kill Zvulun or I'll kill you, you can't kill Zvulun. Because maybe Zvulun is more valuable in the eyes of God than you are. So if abortion is murder, then you cannot, the doctor would not be allowed to perform an abortion to save his own skin. But if abortion is only wasting seed like the Chavos Yair, or it's damaging like the Marit, these are only lavin. You're allowed to violate any prohibition in the Torah to save your skin. Then you'd be allowed to perform the abortion to save your skin. This would be a major nafkamina between the various reasons. To which Rav Unterman suggests that it could be everyone would agree you could perform the abortion to save your life. You know why? Number one, yeah, it's murder. But it's not full-fledged murder. It's what we call abazrai de Ritzicha. It's the dust of Ritzicha. Abazrai de Ritzicha, if it's not explicit in the Torah, you don't have to give up your life not to violate it. And, you ready for this? Even if you want to say, like the Mizrahi, that an abortion is murder, but why am I now to kill someone to save my life? Because who says my blood is redder than his blood? But when we're dealing with an abortion, I have a very compelling logic to say, my life is redder, my blood is redder than the baby's blood. Because Rashi and Sanhedrin said that until a kid is born, it doesn't have a nefesh. So you're right. When it's between any two Jews, we say, who says your blood is redder than their blood? But when it's between a viable human being and a fetus, we do have a compelling logic to say, your blood is redder. You know why your blood is redder? Because you have a nefesh, and the baby doesn't have a nefesh yet. So in that case, says Rav Unterman, everyone would agree the doctor would be allowed to commit the abortion to save his skin. Halacha l'maisa. But don't take anything we say tonight. Halacha l'maisa. Nobody should ever know of such a thing. And if a situation arises, you have to ask, not your local show rabbi. This is something you have to take to the highest level, to the Gedolei HaPoskim. But this is just so you should be familiar with the issues at hand and the issues that we're dealing with. There are two of the major poskim that discuss this shaila. The Tzitz Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer Yehuda Waldenberg, who was the posek of Shari Tzedek Hospital, who wrote the Shas Tshuvas Tzitz Eliezer, and Rav Moshe Feinstein, the Egoist Moshe. And the Tzitz Eliezer deals with a very horrifying case. Nebuch, there's a genetic disease called Tay-Sachs, which is terribly debilitating. The child, within its first year, it begins to deteriorate very rapidly, losing eyesight, losing any faculties. And says that Tzitz Eliezer, at least in his time, I don't know if it's different today, but not so long ago, a child could not survive past the age of 4. And says that Tzitz Eliezer, there are no specific treatments for Tay-Sachs. Maybe you could prolong the life of the kid a few months, but the technology is that after 3 months after conception, you could already do genetic testing and figure out if the kid has this terrible disease. And this is a disease that's terrible suffering for the baby. Maybe even worse suffering for the parents. Psychological suffering. Says Tzitz Eliezer, psychological suffering that can lead to health issues for the parents. He knows of cases where parents had heart attacks and kidney diseases, all because of the agmas nefesh of such a child. It's kula yisurim u'machayvim. In such a case, Rachmana litzlan, would it be permitted, if the parents get a terrible basura that this is a child, would they be allowed to abort the fetus? And the Tzitz Eliezer paskined, this is the one circumstance that it would be mutter, it would be permitted. Why is that? Says the Tzitz Eliezer, first of all, a Jew who commits an abortion, if a guy found out, he couldn't do the abortion. Because for a guy, it's murder. Can you imagine? But if for a Jew, says the Tzitz Eliezer, most poskim say it's not murder. It's only aser. Some say midairaisa, some say midrabanan, hashkasa zera, chavala. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, yes, it's a severe prohibition, but under these very harsh, tragic circumstances, where the parents are going to be thrown into what nobody should have to face, he said it would be permitted under those circumstances. Because, says the Tzitz Eliezer, Rav Yaakov Emden writes that even a kosher ubar, even a kosher fetus, even if the fetus is not a mamzer, litzoyrech gadol, for a great necessity, even if the mother's life is not in danger, the Rav Yaakov Emden says, under very limited circumstances, it would be permitted. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, if there was ever a case of tzoyrech gadol, if there was ever a difficult circumstance in this world, if ever in this world there was a tzara, it would be for a parent to have a child like that. And therefore, says the Tzitz Eliezer, for convenience, let's say parents say, you know what, we're not ready, we can't afford it, or, you know, we're not going to be able to go on vacation, of course you can't do it. But under this one situation, says the Tzitz Eliezer, he would permit it. That's what the Tzitz Eliezer writes in Chelek Yud Gimel, Siman Kuf Beis. In Chelek Yud Dalet, Siman Kuf Aleph, he received another question about a different disease that today has a little bit of a different name. The disease presented to him was something called Mongolidism, which is today Down syndrome. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, even though the testing is pretty accurate, you cannot compare it to Tay-Sachs. Tay-Sachs, the child cannot develop at all, not physically, not mentally, no faculties. The child is kula yisurim machayvim. There's no functionality. That's one situation. But Mongolidism, Down syndrome, the child has a certain level of functioning. It's not in pain. He said he would not permit it for that situation. Again, it's only in the very limited situation where the child's life is not a life at all. And the parent's life is not a life at all. But under the situation of Down syndrome, nobody should know of it. But under that situation, you cannot extrapolate from one disease to another. Says it Tzitz Eliezer, if it's going to absolutely destroy the life of the parents, that has to be viewed and has to be examined carefully by the greatest authorities. But to make a blanket extrapolation, no. Only in the situation of Tay-Sachs, not other situations. However, that's what the Tzitz Eliezer writes in Chelek Yud Daled. In a third tshuva in Chelek Tes, says the Tzitz Eliezer, don't think I'm being liberal here, or I'm being lenient, or I'm treating of not that important the concept of this Isra of Hapalas Ubarim, of abortion. No, you should know that if it's a matter of convenience, or a matter of making your life easier, or a matter of finances, none of this applies. Instead, you have to look at the Zohar HaKadosh. The Zohar HaKadosh writes that there is a certain Aveira that causes the destruction of the world, that because of it, God leaves the world, and famine comes to the world, and murder comes to the world. Says the Tzitz Eliezer in the name of Zohar HaKadosh, abortion is such a terrible, horrendous Aveira that it literally causes the downfall of society and the world. And you have to be very careful. Just because I'm giving a heter in this case of the genetic disease, you have to be very careful not to extrapolate or apply or extend it to any other case. That is the opinion of the Tzitz Eliezer. Very interestingly, the Tzitz Eliezer calls abortion hapolas ubarim, causing them to fall out. A little bit of a more lenient expression. Rav Moshe Feinstein, however, has a more harsh expression. Harigas ubarim. And as we're about to see, Rav Moshe holds, under all circumstances, abortion is cold-blooded murder, without exception. Listen very carefully. Rav Moshe says, doesn't Tosefos say that there is nothing that a Jew could do that a guy can't do? And Tosefos says, what about abortion? Tosefos says, no, Jew can't do abortion either. He says, Rav Moshe, you know why a Jew can't do abortion? It's Ritzicha Mamish. Tosefos says that why are you allowed to be Mechalo Shabbos if it's mutter to abort a fetus? So Tosefos says it's mutter to do an abortion. And even in Tosefos' answer, he said, even though it's mutter to abort the fetus, you could still be Mechalo Shabbos. So Tosefos says it's mutter. Says Rav Moshe, Chas v'shalom, the printer has made an error in Tosefos. And you have to change the words of Tosefos from mutter to pater. Pater means you don't get killed, but you know how to do it. For hundreds of years, nobody ever made this textual amendation in Tosefos. Says Rav Moshe, I don't care. Chas v'shalom to say that Tosefos holds its mutter. Says Rav Moshe, I'll prove it to you. Would anyone in their right mind say that when it comes to a fetus, you have a choice? Either you're mutter to kill it, or you could desecrate Shabbos to save its life. What's Judaism? We're not talking about reform. There's no discretion. There's nothing at your discretion. If you want, you could desecrate Shabbos, and if you want, you could kill it. There's no such thing. You can't desecrate Shabbos for something that you're allowed to kill. It doesn't make any sense. You have to say, says Rav Moshe. What Tosefos means is, you're not liable to the death penalty for killing a fetus, but you still can't do it. And since you can't do it, that's why you're allowed to be Mechalo Shabbos to save the life. But it would be impossible to say that Rebbeinu Shem would ever, Shabbos is not so whimsical, If you want, you could kill the child. And if you want, you could desecrate Shabbos for the child. It doesn't make any sense. Besides that, says Rav Moshe, what was Tosefos' proof that even though you're allowed to, you could be Mechal Shabbos from a goy says? Wait a second. Nobody says l'chadchila you're allowed to kill a goy says. It's just if you do, you're not liable to the death penalty. So maybe only a goy says that since you're not to kill it anyway, you're allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save the life of the goy says. But how could you extend that? How could you prove? But if you're allowed to kill a chadchila, an ubar, so maybe the ubar, the fetus, you can't desecrate Shabbos. I mean, how could you prove it? If a goy says you're not allowed to kill, so maybe only a goy says you're allowed to desecrate Shabbos to save. But if a fetus, you're allowed l'chachila to kill, then how could you prove from a goy says that just like a goy says you're allowed to desecrate Shabbos, you could desecrate Shabbos for the ubar? There's no comparison. The ubar you could kill l'chachila. The goy says you're not allowed to kill l'chachila. Elamai! There's a mistake in Tosefos, and you have to change the word mutter to pater. What would I say, says Rav Moshe, in the case of the German officer who impregnated the woman and is threatening the doctor that if he doesn't perform the abortion, he'll kill the doctor? Could the doctor save his skin by performing the abortion? At first glance, no. You know why? Says Rav Moshe, killing a fetus is not the dust of murder. It's full-fledged, first-degree manslaughter. But you don't incur the death penalty for it. So says Rav Moshe, since you don't incur the death penalty, the doctor would be allowed to save his skin by committing the abortion. You know why? Because he could say, my blood is redder than the kid's blood. Because for killing the kid, you don't get the death penalty. And for you killing me, you do get the death penalty. So my blood is redder. And then Rav Moshe says the most bold thing I ever read Rav Moshe ever say. Rav Yaakov Emden says that a woman who committed adultery and is having a little mamzerol could commit the abortion, and it's even a mitzvah. Says Rav Moshe, despite the fact Rav Yaakov Emden was a great man, and the Chassam Sofer said he was a Navi, these words are Dvarim B'Telem. Dvarim B'Telem. It's just utterly wrong. What? Because this mother is liable to the death penalty together with the kid, so you could kill her? Says Rav Moshe, if someone's liable to the death penalty and you kill them, you take the din into your own hands, you're a murderer. What if you saw somebody desecrate Shabbos and there were two Eidim, and the two Eidim warned him, and you said, forget the Bezdin, I'll stone the guy. You're a murderer. What if the guy went to Bezdin, and you know Bezdin is going to paskin his chayiv misa, and you say, I know what the psak's going to be, so I'll take it in my own hands. You're a murderer. What if you heard the Dayanim whispering to each other that they're about to issue the verdict that this guy is liable to the death penalty? You say, who needs to wait for that? I'll take it into my own hands. And you kill him. You're a murderer. The only time you're not a murderer is if you hear Bezdin say the words chayiv. If you take the din into your own hands, you're not allowed to. But if you do, you won't be considered a murderer. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, we have no Bezdin today. There was no warning. There weren't Eidim. So this woman wants to kill the baby because she would be chayiv misa if Bezdin was around. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, I pray to the Rebbeinu Shalom that the Rebbeinu Shalom forgive Rav Yaakov Emden for writing these words. But nevertheless, says Rav Moshe, don't pay any attention to what he said about this. Was he a great man? Yeah. Was he a Navi? Absolutely. Was he right? No, he was not right about this issue. And therefore Rav Moshe concludes, why am I being so machmir about this issue? Says Rav Moshe, because we live in America, and we live in a society that allows for abortion. But even worse is the fact that the state of Israel also allows abortion. And therefore we have to stand up for the principles of the Torah. And we have to, especially in our generation, take extra precautions to save Jewish life. Says Rav Moshe, Therefore, in my opinion, we have to announce to the world this is cold-blooded murder. A certain Chacham, Rav Moshe doesn't even want to mention his name. A certain Chacham, Paskin, for Shari Tzedek Hospital, that if a kid, lo yaleinu, has a genetic disease, then abortion would be permitted before the 7th month. Says Rav Moshe, I'm astounded and shocked that this Chacham would say such a thing. Now we all know who the Chacham was. We were learning it all night. The 4 Tshuvos, Shas Tshuvos, Tzitz Eliezer. But Rav Moshe was so appalled by this psak, he wouldn't even allow himself to say the name of the Chacham. It says Rav Moshe in conclusion, and this Rav Moshe writes in Igros Moshe, Choshe Mishpat, Chelik Beis and Samach Tes. Rav Moshe concludes, Halacha, Verura, it's absolutely clear, without any doubt, from all the Rishonim and all the Poskim, that abortion under all circumstances is Ritzicha Mamish. Doesn't matter if the kid is kosher, if the kid is a mamzer. Doesn't matter, lo yaleinu, the kid is not healthy, the kid is healthy. Cannot rely on the tshuvas of this Chacham. The Tzitz Eliezer got a hold of the tshuva. Tzitz Eliezer says, and number 23, in Chelek Yudalid Simin Kuf, I saw the tshuva Rav Moshe, what he asks about my halachas. I read it, I reviewed it a 3rd time. Even though I could dissect the whole tshuva and go through it at length, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be very level-headed about it. I'm going to do it with great calmness, b'dimama daka, and you choose which path you take. First says the Tzitz Eliezer, Rav Moshe Feinstein said that when Tosefos says mutter, you have to change the girsa. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, im kol hakavod to Rav Moshe, he says, Lo yadoini, lo zu hadarach. My dear master, this is not the way. Don't we live based on the centuries of Gedolei Yisrael who were very hesitant to tamper with the words of Tosefos? None of the Achronim ever thought to say there's a mistake in Tosefos. And therefore says the Tzitz Eliezer, I don't budge. Under normal circumstances, even for especially for convenience, but even for health, you can't do it. But under the limited circumstances that I mentioned, in those cases, says Tzitz Eliezer, it would be permitted. But Rav Moshe Feinstein, possibly more than any issue he ever stood up for, especially because of what was happening in the state of Israel, where it has become, like we mentioned, from either the most liberal or among the most liberal countries when it comes to this. And we mentioned, can you imagine if there were 1 million more Jewish babies in the world? What the face of the Jewish people would look like? When you think about the fact that Nebuch, the same number of babies were killed in the Holocaust, very scary thought. It's a very sad thought. And because of that, Rav Moshe felt that he has to stand up and preserve the life of the Jewish child. So why is there no Chiyuv Misa? Rav Moshe says, Gzeres HaKos. There's no such din. Maybe because it's Hatzra Suffolk. But here we have these 2 opinions of the Achronim. Certainly Rav Moshe carries the tremendous weight recognized as Paisek Hadar. But this is the issue. So now we could say like this. Going back to the beginning of the Shiur and the Targum Unklos, that Rivka had a Shaila, is Esav a ben Noach, and therefore if he's a ben Noach, she could perform, he's a Roidev, because the ben Noach can't kill an Ubar, but Yisrael could kill a new Ubar. So her Shaila was Esav a ben Noach or not? So now we could say a little differently. You know what Rivka Shaila was? Rivka Shaila was, who do we paskin like? The Tzitz Eliezer or the Igros Moshe? And what they tell her? They said you can't do it. They can't do it. Shnei goyim b'vinech. Okay, that's obviously al pi drush. But this was the halachic dilemma of Rivka Imenu. What are the halachic parameters of abortion? And this is something all the Poskim agree is a davar chamor ad ma'od, and in the under all normal circumstances, this is something that not for goyim certainly. Now it's very interesting. Tzitz Eliezer says that even in the limited circumstance that you're allowed to do it, make sure you get a doctor who's female. Because since the Isser is Hashkafah Zera, and there are many opinions, women don't have that Isser, that definitely makes it more lenient. Because a woman is less warned about the Isser of Hapalas Ubar. So again, Rabbi said this is a sugya chamura ad ma'od. It's not meant lahalacha lamaisa, but like all areas of Torah, it's important to have the fundamental principles. I wish everyone should have Mirz Hashem zara chaya v'kayama, healthy children. Mirz Hashem nachas avias kol tzedek meher yemenu amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.